G'day guys, Red Colt here, and we're here with another Outriders build video. But first, to make it a bit easier for you, I'm going to be introducing a naming system to determine the tier and difficulty behind a build. It's already been implemented where a beginner or a basic build will not require much work to obtain the gear. You're going to be in pretty quick, and it's not going to be overly hard to use. You're going to be able to pick it up and go from the get-go. Then we will be having our intermediate builds, which will be either more so to make abilities start having connection and flow, maybe a bit harder to obtain the gear and mods, but will in the end be a lot more powerful of a build. And then finally an expert build, which will be determined by soloing everything. With this new class implementation, if there are any builds you would like me to review or do, just let me know and I'll do what I can to make that possible. And without further ado, we will get into today's build, which is my Devastator Impalement build, or Vlad the Impaler, for those who like pop culture references. The legendary gear set that works best with this is the Seismic Commander for the extra 50% bleed proc. This build is very heavily built around your bleed procs and healing through them and constantly putting them out. So by adding the Seismic Commander, you will be able to get more damage, more healing. Speaks for itself. Now the skills I use is Gravity Leap, which is purely as a mobility device. I use it to get across the map quickly from enemy to enemy point. And yeah, it's a good way to get around. The other option is Boulder Dash, but I personally prefer Gravity Leap due to its visual effects. Pretty much it comes down to a personal preference, and you can use either one. Next up we have Impale, which is obviously the bread and butter of this build. It is the large amount of damage, bleeding procs. It is just one of the most used abilities despite its large cooldown time throughout the build. I'll explain ways to get the most out of the build, both damage and use-wise. But the final and third ability that is used within this build is Earthquake. Now this is just there for some bonus bleed procs and some extra damage when you don't have your Impale active. It is a very good CC bleed proc and damage dealing ability and works very well. For more details, you can check my basics build, which is actually revolving around the Earthquake. I'll have that linked in the description for you so that you can do that. So now it's time to get into the meat and bones of the video, the bit you're all clear. But before all that, I would quickly like to ask anyone who is not to please subscribe. I think 1% of my viewership subscribes to me currently, and I would love to see that increase. Don't forget to leave a like and comment any builds you would like to see in the future. I am more than happy to do reviews of your personal builds or go through and see if other YouTubers' builds actually work to the best of my ability in the future. So if there's anything you would like to see, just leave it in the comments. Now, without further ado, let's get into the meat and bones of this video, starting off with the class choice. We have gone with the Seismic Shifter class so that we can get access into our blood donation and all our excess blood buffing abilities. So as you perform bleeding procs, they'll deal more damage, they'll last longer, and they may even get bonus effects at the end. You can go through and see which things you would like, but I do have a basic idea there for you to follow the path I chose if that is something you're looking into. But after that we have our packs choice, which we have chose to go with the Tectonic Shifter, which is so we can get energy transmission, so you can have constant near constant gravity leaps. So that's the movement ability I was talking about earlier, where every time we use a seismic ability, which both our Earthquake and Impale are, we will get a percentage cooldown towards our kinetic abilities, which will work towards either Boulder Dash or Gravity Leap. I chose to go with Gravity Leap. It will also allow you to spec into Puncture, which will allow all of your seismic abilities to deal a bleed proc, leading back into the whole bleeding abilities, main focus healing through bleeding and all that jazz, which then allows it to be more synergetic, but you will need World Slayer to access your PAX abilities, to those who do not know, so that may be an extra cost if you are looking into getting into the game properly. But other than that, we will be moving on to what type of gear I suggest. I've already suggested the Legendary Seismic Commander, but I thought I would give you some ideas of what mods to put on. Well, I'm not going to be giving weapon selections because that's a very personal thing. Almost any weapon will work on almost any build. Only things you really need to be looking for is not to be double procking your statuses, because you can't double proc a status, unfortunately, in Outriders to my knowledge. And that you're not just going to be relying on your abilities and your guns are able to deal damage too, because there will always be a point where you're on cooldown and you need to get access to better weaponry. As for your Ascension skills, these are, you eventually get as many as you can, so just for the first few rounds I heavily suggest focusing on things such as your status power, your weapon damage, your cooldown, and your anomaly power. And this is almost universal across all builds, because let's face it, they are the key aspects in the build that you want to be able to show off to your fans, and everything else just comes down to a personal playstyle and what you enjoy. I am one of the few people that are all about only playing a build that you enjoy. You won't see me playing something that I do not have faith in myself. Anywho, so now finally the mods for your gear. I've got a couple suggestions here and the reasons why I personally would run them. That being Sharpened Spikes for the extra damage on your Impale, Spike Forest for an additional Impale, Ultimate Impaler for even more additional Impales. As you can see through the clip behind, I get 3 at any given time off every cooldown. Sacrificial Altar adds weapon, which will add an anomaly or weapon buff depending on which is higher whenever you kill an enemy with Impale. Restoration Impale, which heals 2% damage to all players including your teammates. Vlad Grasps for double range on my Impale. Post-mortem, enemies killed with Impale will impale up to 3 more enemies within 5 meters, so you get 3 extra casts if they're standing close enough for the cost of 1. Then Shred, enemies not killed with Impale are hit with a second Impale at half damage, so when you're facing those bigger bosses you can really start to get in there. Then we will run a second Quake to get additional Earthquake so that we can have more ability to cool down our Gravity Leap. And finally we have Palisade, which allows you to get multiple Impales per cast. So when you cast it once, it will hit the closest, let's say 3 enemies within 5 range. Say you kill all 3 of them will then shoot out 3 more. And you can get large amounts of Pale when the enemies group. This is very effective against almost any beast or monster class creature, not so good with people though. Keeping that in mind when doing your mission selections, because typically you will have the choice to fight enemies you choose when you're doing your pods or your trials. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe. I stream Outriders every Monday and Wednesday at 8:30 PM GMT 10. If you ever want to come check out the builds or have a chat or even play the game with us. Thank you for watching. If this video reaches 10 likes, I will release make and release a new build video then. Otherwise, just keep posted on the channel and eventually I'll put one out. Thanks for watching, enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, hope to see you in the streams. Bye.